Most people, they have dreams, they have ideas, but they don't really have the courage to take action, or they don't have a strong enough vision for why they should do this, right? So we're comfortable in our W-2 jobs. It's like, oh yeah, I can do this for the rest of my life. They know there's a little bit more, but it's not the pain, if you will, is not strong enough to go out there to take action by themselves. So they need to see that bigger vision. They need to get that commitment.
Are you about to start a podcast or producing a podcast and tired of doing the editing yourself? We have produced over 1,000 daily shows, and the production team that I've created, they're now available to produce shows for you as well. We can do as little or as much as you need, from finding and communicating with guests, preparing introductions, to editing the audio and video. You will sound better, have a more professional presence, and be able to spend your time doing other valuable tasks on your business. Let me know you're interested by emailing me directly at whitney@lifebridgecapital.com. This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest, he's been on a couple times before, but it was over 1,000 shows ago. It's hard to believe. His name is Jens Nielsen. He immigrated from Denmark in 1996, and after a 25-year career in the IT industry, he transitioned into a role as a full-time multifamily investor and high-performance coach. Jens is a general partner in over 1,600 apartment units and has coached over 50 clients to find success in their personal and professional life. So Jens and I talk at length, or the first probably half of the show, about some of the coaching stuff and how he left a 25-year career, why, and some key things that happened to help him to get to where he's at now and leaving that career. It's such a big decision. Oftentimes I see people, they think they want that, right? They can see that they want to move into a different business of their own, but then all of a sudden they might have the opportunity and they don't take the step. They don't take that leap because it seems surreal, right? And they're too afraid giving up that what they think is security in that job. So he did it though, and he talks about that, even how he approached his boss, which I thought was a really unique situation and maybe a great way for you to approach your boss when you're looking at doing this. But we also go into his role as an asset manager, and he has become very good at that and lays out some specific things around having a plan and metrics and communication with property management. And I mean, different things that are crucial in that role that you need to know about. I know you're going to learn a lot today. Jens, welcome back to the show. It's so interesting. We were just looking at when you were on before. It's been over 1,000 shows ago. And so I know a lot has changed in that amount of time for you, and your business has grown, and you're helping others grow their business as well now in many ways. But there's some specific things that you are an expert in that we want to dive in on today. Give the listeners maybe a little bit about an update, maybe over the last 1,000 days or so. What's happened? What's happening with Jens, and maybe a little bit of background. But let's jump in.
Yeah, thanks, Whitney. So awesome to see you again. Yeah, I mean, 1,000 shows. That's a lot of work, a lot of days. So yeah, since we spoke, I think it was in 2019. I have left my W-2 job. I'm a full-time investor and high performance coach. I've actually moved. I was in Colorado when we last spoke. Now I'm in New Mexico. So I had a 25-year IT career that I left last year, and it's just been amazing to grow from a few properties, 6-7 years ago to now having syndicated, I think, 1,700 units over the last 3 or 4 years. So that's been a tremendous amount of growth, and it's just, I can't even believe all the changes that happened and where we're at, right? It's been amazing. Super excited to be back on the call with you. Yeah,
it's awesome. And congratulations on leaving the day job and focusing on this and the growth, right, that you've had experienced. Just take a minute, speak to like leaving a 25-year career to go do real estate, right? Like, was that a big deal for you, or was it just like as fast as I can get out of there? Or was it like, no, I've spent 25 years doing this. Should I really leave? How'd you make that decision? Speak to that a little bit, because I get that all the time.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I had a plan when I started investing in real estate. I had like a 5-year plan. Actually, this was a 10-year plan. Then I scaled it back to 5 years. But I wasn't really fully committing to it because I had a lot of, fear and uncertainty about leaving. But then COVID hit. So 2 years ago, like we're all aware, COVID hit. We all got sent home. And I was like, man, what do I need to do here? So I really what changed for me, right? I actually hired a coach to get me on track, to really get me to commit to what I wanted to do. So I knew I needed to make some change. I knew I needed to get out of my W-2 job. And he helped me kind of get that clarity, that vision of where to go. So through that process and through the relationship I had with my boss, I was like, hey, my business is growing. I want to get out of it. What kind of arrangement can we come up with? And we actually came up with a 6-month transitioning period. So I went to part-time in the summer of 2020, and spent that 6 months just transitioning out, training everybody to replace me and all that while I was building my real estate, my coaching on the side. So that really helped a lot. And I mean, I was so blessed my boss had that understanding to do that.
I was going to say, most people may not even approach their boss to say something like that for fear of just being fired right there,
Yeah, that was awesome. I mean, and he's been one of my investors for a long time, so he knew what was going on. So he was totally behind it. So I mean, that was a blessing for me. Yeah. So it's a 6-month period just to slowly transitioning out of it. And towards the end, I was like, man, I wish I had gotten out of it earlier because once you start having some more time to put into your business, this grows much quicker than you can imagine, right? So and I still use those skills. I didn't check them at the door when I left. So those skills that I learned for all those years still come in extremely handy in my business right now.
Are you glad you did it?
Great. Oh, I have no regrets whatsoever.
No, congratulations again. And speak to, you said you had a 10-year plan, but you didn't commit. And maybe there were some limiting beliefs around that, how fast you could make it happen and some of those things. After you said, we're going to scale, or what made you commit and scale it back to 5 years?
Yeah. So initially I didn't even know anything about syndications and other things. I thought I had to save my own money and invest in my own account, right? So I was like, okay, in 10 years, I can probably save enough and get to that point. Then I started learning about syndications, other people's money, partnering with people. It's like, oh, wait, there's a whole other world out there. Right? Once I discovered that, I saw that this was a business, not just I'll invest passively on the side, right? So when I turned it into a business, I saw that I could ramp it up much quicker, through the active income, through the syndications and the passive income through growing the portfolio. So that was basically the way to scale there much quicker.
Why did you hire a coach? And why? There's so many things that we could talk about there. But however, so many people are hesitant, right, to hire that first coach. Why did you do that then? Or why did you feel that was a good investment?
Yeah, I mean, it is, can be a significant investment to do that. But, I, like many other people, had all this fear and uncertainty during the beginning of COVID. It's like, oh my God, what's going to happen here, right? Are our properties going to fail because people can't pay rent? What have I really, what's going to happen in my life and stuff? And I realized I had two options. I could hide in a corner and live in fear, or I could face my fears, my challenges head on and get some clarity, get some direction, get some guidance. And I was like, man, I got to move forward here. I can't slow down. I can't stop. And I had worked with this individual in some group sessions, so I knew what he could provide. And I was like, man, one-on-one coaching is going to help me. And I mean, it was life-changing. It's probably the best investment I've ever made, because had I not done that, all kinds of things, bad things probably had happened to me, and it turned into positive outcomes for me. So.
Speak to, was that coach real estate specific coaching? Was it more like personal development or a little both? How did that, I was just trying to figure out where did that help you the most? And, this coach's expertise or specialty, how you leaned on that?
Yeah. So he's a high performance coach. So basically it's mindset, it's personal development, it's, life coaching. So he's not a real estate expert by any means. I figured I can probably figure out the technical aspects myself. It's the mindset and the courage to take action. So he just helped me get clarity, and not only in real estate, figuring out. So I had made some promises to my wife about moving to a different state, and I was just pushing that in front of me. I had, there's just all these changes that I thought I needed to do that I didn't commit to. So he helped me get clarity around all those things and improve my relationships and just, become a high performer in all aspects of my life versus just in one area.
It's amazing to me how, and most of us, and we've heard it so many times, the mindset, the taking action, those things. However, many of us just still don't do it. Right. And we don't have any accountability, like you're talking about. And so those things, they don't just magically happen, without putting some fire to us sometimes, or under our feet, right? Or somebody that says, "Hey, have you done this?" Or what about this? Or did you do what we talked about last week or the month before? Or it's so helpful, and I could not agree more. And speak to quickly too, and because I want to get to some asset management stuff, because that is something you are very good at as well. But speak to some of your clients now. I know you're doing a lot of high performance coaching now. What's some of their biggest holdups, and what's happening that they're coming for coaching, and what's the biggest thing that they need?
Yeah. So to step back for a minute. So after I saw how much this helped me, I decided to, become a coach myself, right? So I went through the certification and became a certified high performance coach. And I've been that for about 2 years now. And I've worked with lots and lots of clients. And I think most people, they have dreams, they have ideas, but they don't really have the courage to take action, or they don't have a strong enough vision for why they should do this, right? So we're comfortable in our W-2 jobs. It's like, oh yeah, I can do this for the rest of my life. They know there's a little bit more, but it's not the pain, if you will, is not strong enough to go out there to take action by themselves. So they need to see that bigger vision. They need to get that commitment. They need to really see, oh, if I do this work, I can create something amazing. So once we develop that clarity and that vision, then people start taking action because they get so drawn towards that. So I think too often we don't spend enough time developing a vision for our future for the next 3, 5, 10 years. Once that's in place, then action starts happening. Of course, then we got to overcome, the limiting beliefs and the hesitations we have for taking action. But that's where that really comes much quicker after you have developed a clear vision of where you need to go in your life.
And how long should we spend on developing that vision? And then how quickly is that vision going to change, right? Or I mean, you got to write something down, right? You got to be heading somewhere, or you're headed nowhere, right? I guess how long should we spend on that? How accurate? How much does it need to be? Just how much should we belabor on, getting that as good as possible for this vision? And then how often do you see it changing, and how fast?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely need to spend, some time. It could be a few hours, several weeks where we kind of look at it. But we need to focus on, because let me step back. And a lot of people, they just look at goals. Hey, I want, $1 million a year in passive income or whatever it is. That's just a goal. But without a reason behind that goal, it becomes meaningless. So that's why the vision is around, who do we want to be as a person? How do we want to give back? What are the relationships we want to have? How do we want to develop? I know you have a very strong vision around all the work that you do and charity and so forth, right? So once we develop all those things, then that pulls us forward. And typically what I do with a client, we spend a couple of sessions working on it. They working on it at home. We come back and they get it, written out. And then they, we revisit it every 6 to 12 months, make sure it's still intact. It's still powerful enough to pull you forward. Right? And it changes. It changes because we can't see the future. We can just have an idea. So we just need to, at least once a year for sure, look it over and revisit our vision. So
revisiting the vision annually, right? And then you mentioned something else, making sure it's powerful enough to pull them in. That's interesting. I just wanted to highlight that. But that's great, Jens. I just feel like that's so helpful. And if the listener hasn't done those things, there you go. Take some action and go think about that, right? Write it down and write something down today, and improve it tomorrow, and work on it, for a week or two, and have that plan, right? And so it's you get a map out, figure out where you're going to go, right? When you're driving, or you use Google Maps, I guess, and it kind of tells you. But in this case, you still have to put in the destination, right? You still have to put in the destination before it can even tell you where you need to go. So I don't know why we don't think about that enough with where we want to be, right? 3 to 5 years from now. Well, let's jump into another expertise that you have, and it's asset management. And this is such an important piece, right? To operating the deals and know they're performing and all these things. We recently hired a full-time asset manager who's doing just amazing, because as we grew, I mean, it was hard to to keep doing the asset management for all the deals and then look for more deals and things you'll start noticing, you forgot about this thing or didn't follow up on this thing over here. Well, eventually it's like, okay, we got to have somebody that's just committed to that, and so, speak to the asset management role a little bit and let's jump into some challenges and tips and things that you've learned.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as we listen to podcasts and read books, everybody talks about getting that first deal and closing your syndication or whatever that is. And that's exciting and that's challenging to get to that. But what most people don't realize, maybe that takes you 2 or 3 months from LOI to closing the property. What most people don't necessarily think about is like, wait, we got 5 years behind that we need to manage this asset against our business plan to meet our investors' returns and everything else. And that's tedious. I mean, there's no questions asked, right? I mean, that's a tedious process because it's basically, it's project management. And given my 25-year IT career, I've done so many multi-million-dollar projects with the updated computer systems and all those things, right? And there's nothing really different. You set a goal, you figure out what are the tasks that you need to do in order to get to that goal, right? And I think that's what we forget is like, we just need to figure out what's that project plan to get there. So, we, like anybody else, we kind of struggle initially trying to figure that out, right? And it was like, okay, we then stepped back and said, okay, what are the metrics we need to meet on a weekly or monthly basis, right? What is our occupancy? What is our turn rate? What is our delinquency? What are, our net profits or net operating income? All those things that we need to meet. We started putting those scorecards or those KPIs in place and started managing against that, right? So we'll meet or are meeting with our property managers, weekly or biweekly, depending on the stage of that project, and then just manage against those metrics. That's really what it's all about. And if things are off, we'll figure out what's that issue. How do we resolve that issue and then go into it, right? I think that's really what it's all about, having a clear plan and then managing against that plan. Yes, again, now we're struggling with supply chain issues and labor and all those things, but those are the things that I think everybody has a challenge with at this moment in time.
Yeah. Could you give an example of a plan, that maybe you all have on a project? Is that plan include, having a specific number of renovations in amount of time or specific jobs being done, a task, or maybe, vacancy numbers dropping or give somebody a little guidance on even creating that plan around good asset management of a project that maybe they are going into, and just use an example maybe that you've done or type of value add type deal.
Yeah. And so most of the deals we do are value add. So really what we try to look at, we say, okay, we got 100 units we need to renovate. What can we realistically do? Is this a 1 year or 2 year, 3 year plan? And we look, so as part of the underwriting, we look at that and said, okay, maybe we can do 3 units a month. Also that will take us, maybe 2.5 years to get 100 units renovated. Something like that. And then we break it down. We look at the rent roll and we say, okay, based upon the current rent roll, every month, here are the leases that expire. So this month we can terminate that lease. That month we can terminate this lease. And then we just plan it out. So we don't have 50 termination in the first month that we can't turn them all, right? So we try to balance that out and figure out, okay, how long it's going to take to do every turn? What are the rents going to be after we turn them? How long is it going to take to lease it up? So create a plan that we can implement over the next couple of years that's going to get us to that goal, right? So we start with that because then we can also plan what our income is going to be month over month based upon those turns, based upon those vacancies we have, and we really manage against that in a value add project is to get those turns according to that plan, right? And that's how we underwrite our income for the first couple of years.
Speak to you talked about metrics earlier. What metrics should we be tracking? What do you look for and how often?
Yeah. So, again, on some of these bigger projects, we definitely meet every week and we have like a dashboard we track against, our income versus our budget, our expenses versus our budget, our, vacancy or occupancy, any kind of, where we're at on lease up. And also we track our expenses against our CapEx budget. How much money have we spent on our renovations? versus our budget there, how many units have we turned, how many do we still need to turn, and so forth. So those are some of the key things, right? How many units are down versus ready to be leased. So, there's a whole long list, but and sometimes we also have to be careful. Don't have just measurements for the heck of it. Have them measurements that are valuable for making decisions based on, and that's one of the key things.
That's a good point. I think you just mentioned, good metrics that help you make good decisions.
That's right.
I mean, that makes so much sense. Talk about even how do you get those metrics? Do you have access to, say, a property management software where you gather those things? Is that through a phone call with the management company? Is that, you're going in the office and pulling those things yourself? What does that look like?
Yeah, we've actually we love Google Docs, Google Sheets, and all those things. So the way we created a Google form. So every week, the property manager goes in and fills in the Google form and says, okay, week ending this date, here's our income, here's our delinquency, here is our leads, our leases, our occupancy, and everything else. And just plug it into a quick sheet. It populates a Google spreadsheet that we have, and then we create graphs and trends against that. So that's because, if we work with 5 different property managers, they may have 5 different types of software, right? And that way we can consolidate it and put it into one dashboard versus having to export their reports and plug it in manually, right? So that's something we've implemented over the last 6 to 8 months, and it seems to be working quite well. So we have nice graphs, and for those more visual people, they can just see, well, we're trending up or trending down against our budget and so forth.
So they just complete the same form every week then, and it just keeps putting that same information on the same sheet in a row, right? I think that's really smart, actually. I mean, because and you can see it all in one place, and like you said, you can have it all automated, so it just completes those graphs as soon as they put the information in there.
That's right. That's where the IT career comes in handy.
Yeah, that is very handy. Speak to, what about you notice maybe a trend on that graph that's not going the way you were hoping. How do you communicate that to the property management company? How much do you normally push them?
Yeah, I mean, so we do meet weekly, right? And it's always hard to get people to do stuff if they're not motivated in the right way. So obviously, the way we have the benefit that a couple of deals, one of our partners is also our property manager. So, it helps align those incentives, right? But I think really the best way is to ask the property manager, said, okay, so we got 10 vacancies. We really should be down to 5 in 2 weeks. Is that reasonable? Get them to buy into that solution or that outcome, and said, okay, what is it going to take? Them telling you what it's going to take to get there. So we're not forcing stuff on them that they can't do. Said, okay, you can release those 5 units in the next 2 weeks. Perfect. Let's see how that goes, right? So we actually create accountability against things that they commit to doing versus just telling, well, you have to get them leased. Well, whatever problem they may have is middle of winter. Nobody's leasing apartments and so forth, right? So getting a buy-in there, I think, is really important. And then said, okay, this is what we agreed on. Hold them accountable to that, right?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And it is the consistent communication, right? And having those conversations. I think, like you said, I think it's so important, even having that vision and plan for them. So, they know ahead of time, right? You're not having a hard conversation later because they didn't do something you didn't even talk about. And so, right. What about, Jens? When you all are looking at these projects, speak to just how you all are prepared for a downturn.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, right? I mean, we obviously come in with good capital reserves up front, so we have money in the bank to pay, in case our occupancy drops. Come in with that. We try to get long-term fixed debt on there, so we're not surprised by any crazy changes in interest rate and so forth. I mean, I will say we are doing a couple of deals that have bridge loans on there. Of course, that comes in and takes another level of risk. But then we also can see the tremendous amount of upside there, right? And then we stress test our deals when we do the underwriting, make sure, okay, if we can't get there, can we still service the debt and so forth, So, those things, making sure that we're not saying that cap rates are going to continue to compress, because at some point you would assume they won't, and so forth.
Sure.
But, it's we're in markets that are, we're not in crazy markets where the swings are, from the bottom to the top are really high. They're more linear, but it's also, I feel, it creates a little bit of an insulation from those risks that you may take in more cyclical markets as well.
What about, do you have any predictions just for the real estate market in the next 6 to 12 months? Not that any of us know exactly what's going to happen, but maybe you all are planning to buy or planning to sell, or, based off what you believe is going to happen.
We're definitely still in acquisition mode in some of the markets we're in, because we see opportunities. We see older owners coming, starting selling their older portfolios that need significant amount of CapEx that we're really focusing on. And we are still, there's still a tremendous lack of affordable housing in this country. So we go in and do that, C plus B minus type properties. And as we've all seen, rents have gone up tremendously. And there's just really, I think a lot of property managers haven't even been keeping up with that demand and that fact. So we're really trying to capitalize on that and keep pushing forward. So, I'm still very optimistic about it. I think the one challenge is potentially rising interest rates, but also I don't know how far rates can go before the government and everybody else will be in too much trouble. They can't raise rents any further. So.
What's your best source for meeting new investors right now?
I host my own meetup here and where I live in Santa Fe. So that's one way I've met some investors. We're putting on a conference actually this coming weekend in Denver. So that's a new way to potentially meet some people, I will say I'm not the guy who does most amount of promotion for investors, because we have partners that do some of that, but referrals, and I have a lot of repeat investors as well. So some of those ways I've been successful in growing.
Nice. No, I don't think I knew you were doing conferences as well. That's awesome. Speak to, especially you being a coach and helping others now as well. Speak to some daily habits that you're disciplined about that have helped you achieve this level of success.
I get up at 5 a.m. and I spend, first 20, 30 minutes doing yoga, some other exercises in my house. And then I spend another 20, 30 minutes writing my journal, planning out my day. And I think that's probably the biggest change that I've implemented in the last 6 months, is having an actual, it's a paper planner, but writing out hour by hour, what am I going to work on? So I don't let other people's agenda take over. I don't let small issues consume my whole day. Try to work on those big things first, right? So those are so key to me. So that's usually an hour and a half before I start kind of go to work, read for a while, read whatever I'm doing, and then jump into it. Just having those things, plan your day first, set the agenda for your day. And I think that's one of the key things that I worked on for years to really take control of your day.
I think it's another one of those things that we hear numerous successful people do, but often we don't do it ourselves, right? We need that coach, need somebody that's speaking into us and holding us accountable. What about if you had to pick one thing that's contributed to your success, what would that be?
Having partners that are on the same path as you are, that can support you, that can challenge you, that you can grow with, that you like being around. I initially had limiting beliefs around partners, but now I'm like, wouldn't do a deal without somebody else. Right?
Definitely a mindset shift. What about how do you like to give back?
Yeah, I think the coaching, that's a key thing for me, because that helped people grow. I love running my meetup. That's so much fun to give back that way. As I mentioned, by the time this podcast airs, that conference will be over, but really adding, we call it the Give It Forward or the Pay It Forward conference, because we want to help the next generation of investors find success, right? So that's a key thing. So really all about that community. I'm so passionate about that.
Awesome. Jens, always a pleasure catching up with you. Great to have you back on the show and just hear more about your success and how you've done that, right? And helping us motivate us really, and thinking through what you've done. Are we taking some of those same crucial steps or not? And at least telling us what those were. But even leaving your position after 25 years, I think for most, it's once you have the opportunity, it's hard to actually it looks good, right? But then once the option is there, it's hard to take that leap. And so thankfully you did, and encouraging all of us as well. But the vision and revisiting it annually, and is it something that pulls you in? But then even to the asset management tips and the roles, and having the clear plan and the metrics and the communication with property management, all those things, very helpful today. Grateful for your time. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
Yeah, thanks, Whitney. So people can go to my website, which is opendoors with an S capital.com, opendoorscapital.com. And they can send an email to Jens, Jens, at opendoorscapital.com. And I'd love to get on my offer to your listener is anybody wants to jump on a free call, just send me an email and we can get on a call and just chat about whatever they got going on in their life.
Thank you for being a loyal listener of the show. Please subscribe and share it with your friends. We want to help you become the passive investor you've always wanted to become, but also the operator you've always wanted to become. We want to be the number one resource for your real estate investing journey. But go to lifebridgecapital.com where you can start investing in real estate today.